Hey, I'm Vikki Smith from SB Barbering Academy, and I'm going to show you my take on the mullet. So you like this bit longer because of the bounce, yeah? Am I right?
Yeah.
You still like height on the front, choppy, messy, sort of quiffy,
yeah.
Plenty of texture. You haven't long had it cut, so I will still put you a skin fade in and connect. I'm just going to connect these little bits a little bit more. You like party at the back?
Yeah.
So texture, so you can just,
Mess it up,
you bring this out at the back, don't you? So you don't want these layers too long around the crown because you've got quite a spikiness around here. So if you work with that, then it's just easy for you to do on a morning.
Definitely.
Yeah? So I'm putting a shape line in with the one open. It's my Gamma Alphas, which are great little clippers. So I'm going to close, and I am going to put a loose zero line in. My old little favourites. I love the Gamma tools, but I just have used these for so long. I just love them. Slightly under, following that curve. When I'm here, I'll do a little job. Just feel like that just gives a nice little finish. Obviously, it wasn't long since this hair was cut, so love these for little tight areas. Fantastic little foils. Bounce at the top. Just so small to get in behind the ear and in little tight spaces. I'm going to open up the fade area. Slight little drop there, so I've come down at the front and around here. Drop that back down. Got slight grainy hair, so I need to work that little bit more. Just a few little darker little hairs that probably I want to get out back with my trimmers. Looking at that area there, I'm just going to open this sort of curve up a bit more. I always find that when I cut hair, sort of I have a plan in my head, but then when you start, there's little changes you can make, and it's fine to do that. Next, I'm going to go half guard open. Everything I do here is simple. I don't talk in numbers. So I'm just going to open up. So I'm going to flick through that line there. Knock back a little bit. Not too much, so I'm just going to close. Because of the grains in the hair, I'm just going to close, and then I'm going to show you how to come around this side. So instead of turning, because the hair grows down, I'm going to take the clipper into it. And then I'm going to close it to work on that little edge. Just pick out 1 to 2 little rows of hair. You can see the grains there, so I would knock right back, even going into the open area, just to knock in those little bits. So I'm going to open up that blending area with the two. I always split it into like zones or areas. So I've done skin area, fade area. Now I'm going to open up the blending area. So because you leave that area longer, I'm going to clip up from that natural recession point there. 2 opens doing nothing, which I knew it wouldn't because it's fresh. So I'm just softening out with 2 closed. Trick is to hit the bottom line. Brush out, hit the bottom line, still there, so I'm going to go in with the 1.5 guard. Just knocking in, it's coming in nice there. Closed. been cut not long ago, so that I'll probably not be able to get that. But if someone had a little bit more growth and you dropped it like that, you could get a little bit more of a shadow and a curve on it. You don't have to take much off. You don't need to chew the hairline off. You just need to catch the hair that needs to come off to create that shadow. And create a little bit of a shadowed curve there behind. So now I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. So a little tip from Ryan at for SB Barbers when he comes and teaches in here, which I think is great. He uses the mirror a lot. And he uses them points. We'll drop this out now. Take this area up. And we're going to repeat. Very loose with the zero. The looser you are, the quicker your haircut comes together. Loose, give that little flick with the pivot on your finger. If you notice when I'm using clippers or trimmers, I use heel to toe all the time. So I like, if I'm working this way around, I use the pressure on this side of the clippers or trimmers. And then if I'm working back around the other way, I sort of swap sides, sharpen. Like I say, we don't want to take too much off. When I'm putting foils in as well, I always bounce at the top. And what that does is any little dark patches as well, you can bounce them out instead of like going up against the grain and taking it tighter and tighter, which on the bottom I will. But then I start bouncing again near the top. So I'm going to open up the fade area. Remember when you're working around heel to toe, so I'm coming around this way so the pressure is hitting the bottom line. And like I did on the other side, on Josh's, because he's got grainy hair, I was loose with the zero, but I'm just going to get this little area right before I move on. So I'm just going to drop down. I always like to get each stage perfect before I move on. So I'm not putting a line in, I'm just making sure I'm getting them little grainy ones out. Half guard, open. And because I'm working on a curve, I'm going to change from heel to toe again. Hit the bottom line first. So then we're going to go two. Not really taking much off. I always sort of cut how I teach, and I always say go in longer for safety, so they're not going to push in. So that's exactly what I'm doing. And then I'm just going to go open between the top line and that little blending area there in between. Get that little bit. I'm going to go back and move with the one there because it's a little bit heavy on that little bit. So we're not coming round like this. We're just going to use the end of the clipper guard to work that out. Like I say, it doesn't look like you're doing much, but you actually are. Just a little bit there. Just shows that little fade off there. So what I'm going to do is, I am going to cut section 1 and we're going to leave these sides out. So I think about 1 centimetre off. Yeah. I always blunt cut, so we're going to come back on section 1. And I always cut with muscle memory, and sometimes the slower I go, the less I've got flow-wise. So we're going to come back far enough to the crown because I'm going to use that as a guide back. And then I'm going to use a guide. And what I'm going to do is, because we need that weight on the front, is I'm just going to remove that, and I'm going to do that last. So I want that weight around that area. So I'm going to come out. I'm going to blunt cut it, and then I'm going to put texture in afterwards, if you're wondering. Same on this side, because we need that to come forward. So people always wonder how to connect the back of a mullet in. I get so many questions. So basically, I'm just going to follow, because he wants to wear it up at the back, a square uniformed layer is perfect until we get down to section 4, and I'm going to connect that layer. Just move that out of the way. So I'm coming down to section 5, and I'm coming round in segments. And I'm just going to pick up this exactly the same. This is quite long, so I might over direct slightly to keep that weight. If you're just used to doing clipper work all the time and not long hair, this can become really, really stressful. Now, if you find this uncomfortable, I've done this way for years, but if you find this uncomfortable, you can turn and you can come underhand down to section 4. Have you done this section? Nothing there. And over direct this back. Keep that weight. I'm going to put some foam tonic through, and that'll just help me get a grip. And I'll use this for styling as well, just on this bottom area. I find this really, really good anyway. When you're cutting, especially longer hair, it helps see the sections going much, much better. So I'll come from the occipital bone, and we're going to over direct everything up to that point. And then there's nothing to take off the bottom, and make sure the two sections are connected just by going through the middle. Yeah. So what that's done is we have uniform layered this top bit to get height as it comes out, and then we've over directed the length up to the occipital bone, which is like midway, and that keeps the weight in the bottom area. So I'm just going to lightly dry, and I can see now straight away, once that's texturized, that's going to go in so well. Yeah, that's a perfect length, and I'll just like chip through. It's heavy on this corner, but so this bit is very heavy around this area, so I'm going to take the claw off. Anyone who's been to SB knows what the claw is. And I'm going to connect this into the height line here. Check for a corner. Everyone seems to leave these corners on. With these lovely little scissors. So if you're wondering what I'm doing there, I get the roots up straight, because I think when you're learning as well, if the roots are up straight, you've got more control. Basically, I just like to break. See the difference there now, look, of breaking them ends up. get me big scissors for this. This is the bit on the connection that I was talking about. So as we come in closer, I turn my comb and I can see more what I need to take out. And because he does like that party on the back, I'm not going to fully connect, but I am going to start bringing this in. That little corner there, can you see it? I always think working through your comb is easier than working through your fingers sometimes. I mean, you can razor this in, you can, some people use, I think thinning scissors like would be a little bit too severe. I think taking weight out this way and creating that texture. So I'm going to do the same on this side with the connection with the scissor over comb through the comb. Taking that corner out in the middle. Are you happy with that height and everything, Josh?
Yeah, it's great, yeah.
Do you see here, now you can get your product on, but you've still got your party going on at the back.
Yeah, cool.
But it's more softened into that area.
More gradual than as blunt as it was.
So I can see underneath that we've got like this growth pattern is coming up and round. So a little trick that I learned years ago, like if someone wanted a mullet, because people, you know, now it's training, quite often people got mullets, it's background. I just lightly flick off. And what that does is as well, it's just, it tidies up the neck, but also lets the hair lie flat. That's a little trick. Well, actually, I'm going to use some salt spray. Salt spray will create quite it's like gritty, so if you move it like that, it'll stay. If you use the hairdryer just to flick up like that, I cut it so it lies like that. There's no point me cutting it, so you have to get a brush out and you're trying to do all of this. I've cut the hair, so you told me you wear your hair up. You'll be able to put salt spray on, it'll just mess it up like that. Obviously the front's a little bit easier for you to do, but I'm the type of barber who makes that hair work for that person. Not being funny, it looks quite cool going in like that with that spike like that. You wear it over, I'm going to create a tiny channel behind your fringe, just take a little bit of weight out. And then that'll sit nicely over it. So I'll put a tiny bit of this powder on as well. I always think a little bit on your root.